So to be respectful for everybody who has joined us today and on time, I want to make sure that we're not taking advantage of your time today and would like to get right into this. Just as a housekeeping note, you are available to ask questions throughout the seminar, the webinar, but would you refrain from asking them out loud? I don't know if everyone's going to remain muted, but would you use the chat feature if you have a question? If we feel like it's a question that needs to be addressed right then and there, I'll interrupt Stephen and bring the question into the moment. Otherwise, what we'd really prefer to do is handle Q&A at the end. So just as a housekeeping, please use the chat feature for your questions, and then we will definitely have a Q&A session at the end. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about healthy working analytics, and then turn things over to Stephen to take you through healthy working analytics and the importance of it, and especially in this time period. So healthy working I apologize. Some of you don't know me. I'm Bill Pace. I'm the U.S. President of Cardinus. So I do want to, again, thank you for joining us today and giving up some of your time to learn more about the solution. As I introduce healthy working analytics, I want to take us back a couple of years, like 3 years. And in our, as many of you know, Healthy Working Office program, we had one question in the risk assessment that asked the employees, are they able to manage their workload? And it was an early indicator of stress for us. The majority of our US clients took that out. They did not want that in pre-COVID. Now, as we evolved, one of the, I think, positive things that have come out of the pandemic is so many organizations are looking at mental health, mental well-being. What can we do to help our employees? We can't reach out and touch Bill Pace. We can't go by his desk. He's not here. But what can we do to help him with his stress load, his anxiety? So many of the US organizations that we work with now have mental health awareness. They have mental health programs. They have surveys. They have solutions. They have so many solutions that are in place now. And I think that's one of the great things that are happening with the advent of the pandemic and getting to know our employees a bit more. And really what we started looking at is, from our perspective, is what else is there, right? Because we do a wonderful job, as many of you know, at Healthy Working on helping the employees with posture, with positioning, with discomfort, right? Removing those factors that are impeding performance or placing them at risk. But what we really wanted to know is, how can we expand that? How can we go even further than that? And this webinar is going to talk a bit about productivity, right? But what Stephen's really looking at is, what are the distractions outside of just posture and equipment and discomfort? What are the distractions that are impeding your employees' performance? So what are the factors that are putting them at risk as well as impeding their performance? And I think that's an important piece to all of this, because in our world, we're seeing more and more, and John Abbott and I had several conversations at the Applied Ergo show. There's a couple of the clients that are on right now where EH&S risk has moved into HR, has moved into well-being. And I applaud that, because I do feel like at the end of the day, MSK, MSD is a big issue with a lot of companies. But certainly before we can even get to that, we need to understand not just what those factors are that are even outside MSK, MSD, or well-being, but we need to understand how even the hybrid work environment now, as we move to that, is impacting the employees. And so hopefully, I know I've talked a bit around in a circle around this, but hopefully what you gathered from this is an understanding of some of the root causes to distraction that are impeding your employees. And John Abbott and I had a call with a global company the other day. And one of the accommodations that they were looking at is claustrophobia. And the first thing I thought was, claustrophobia? You mean like they don't want to work in a cubicle anymore because it's claustrophobic? And really what they were talking about is the employee wanted their shift hours changed so they weren't going to work or coming home during high traffic times. They didn't like being in public transportation where the buses or the subways were full, and they wanted an accommodation for that. So again, I can't imagine if I have claustrophobia trying to deal with that, getting to the office and how long it's going to take me to settle down before I can get to work. And so, this isn't all about mental health. There's so many other things that Stephen accomplishes. And I apologize, but Andy Hawks couldn't join us today, but I want to read a statement from our CEO, Andy Hawks, in regards to Stephen Bowden and healthy working analytics. And he said, business leaders need to understand what a move to a fully remote or agile hybrid workforce will mean for the short, medium, and long-term productivity and efficiency of the business. Will we see a gradual decline in productivity as the novelty of working from home during the pandemic wears off? Or is the hybrid model the right model in the long term? And this is where healthy working analytics differs from the current crop of well-being, engagement, and culture surveys. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is turn the program over to Stephen Bowden. He's the brainchild. He's a chartered ergonomist, human factors expert. He's put together and uses a highly valid question together with powerful statistic tools to fully understand these issues that I've mentioned and much more. So again, without further ado, Stephen, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Bill. And hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. So yes, my name's Stephen. I'm a chartered ergonomist, and I work in mainly manufacturing industries, trying to design out at the early stage and reactively work-related musculoskeletal disorders. But I've always had an interest in the topic of well-being and productivity and making the economic argument during any ergonomics or human factors intervention. So I also wrote a chapter in Creating the Productive Workplace, 3rd edition in 2017, where I talk about this subject, not in as much detail as you'll see today, but the ergonomics approach to well-being and productivity. So we worked with, in the development of healthy work analytics, we worked with the University of Hertfordshire, Professor Neil Spencer, who's a chartered statistician. So him and his team looked at our data that we were collecting and designed the dashboard and all of the automated statistical analysis that you will see. So, introducing healthy work analytics, a bit more background. So it's a confidential online employee survey. We've spent a lot of time focusing on the confidentiality of the participants of the survey to ensure that they can be confident that no one's going to be knocking on their door after they've completed the survey. So it's as confidential as possible. So that was a really important element for us. It's designed to provide business leaders with data that allows focused interventions to improve and measure their workforce well-being, self-reported productivity, and we can also measure actual productivity and payback time. So if you're interested in the business, and law firms are a great example of this, they sort of bill by the hour and they really want to know what the impacts on their sort of productivity. So if you are interested in the actual productivity, not just self-reported, we can help you measure that as well. So Healthy Work Analytics, as Bill mentioned, it establishes to what extent working environmental factors are distracting employees from fully concentrating on the tasks they are responsible for. So we're not necessarily measuring how engaged your staff are, because you could have an individual who's fully engaged, but they are being distracted by a number of well-being issues, physical, social, and psychological, is where we categorize our questions under, that are stopping them doing their best work. And as you'll see, if those distractions are sustained for long periods of time, this can lead to high levels of presenteeism, absenteeism, short-term sickness, long-term sickness, and potential exit from the company. So we're looking to find out what's distracting your employees from fully concentrating on the tasks they're responsible for. Because if an employee is unable to concentrate or unable to meet their goals set to them by their management, this can cause the employee's perception of their personal well-being to be out of balance, leading, if unchecked, to ill health and a deterioration in productivity. So we did a lot of reading and looking at the literature to really get a good grasp of what well-being is. And because lots of well-being programs I come across, they very rarely define what well-being is. Now, to measure something, you need to be able to define it first of all. Now, Rebecca Dodge, in the paper in her paper, The Challenge of Defining Well-Being. Defined well-being as the balance point between an individual's resource pool and the challenges faced. Now, that's a beautiful definition of well-being. It takes into account that well-being is a fluid thing. It changes on a day-to-day basis depending on what resources you have available and what challenges you are faced with. Now, this example here is an example of a balance between resources and challenges. This individual's well-being is imbalanced, and they're going to be a productive individual. Now, what Healthy Work Analytics looks to do is identify when an individual's challenges are outweighing resources, but well-being can be both ways, out of balance. You could have more resources to cope with your challenges, so you're not being challenged enough. We want a balance between the two, but the classic example is where challenges are outweighing resources. Now, in this circumstance, this happens on a daily basis, and that's okay. It's only if this is sustained for extended periods, as I mentioned, and there's not an intervention put into place. This can then lead to what we see here. So this individual here is healthy and present at work. If they are then distracted, this can then lead to someone being unable to cope with the challenges from distractions, reduced concentration, well-being out of equilibrium. This is normally where HR or occupational health get involved. Then it's ill health, short-term absence, and potential exit from the company. So we're looking, Healthy Work Analytics is looking to provide managers in each department the key areas of someone's subjective well-being from a physical, social, and psychological well-being perspective that are distracting them from doing their best work. What's making their well-being be out of balance? Healthy Work Analytics can provide that information for you. Now, also, we hear a lot about health and well-being. Now, they're not necessarily the same thing, connected at the hip, but not the same thing. We could have an individual who resourcing and challenges are in balance. They're a productive individual, but they could be classified as unhealthy if they went to their doctor for a checkup. But you could have an individual whose well-being is out of balance, but if they go to a doctor for a health checkup, they're doing quite well. But one thing that having your well-being in balance allows you and gives you the resources to adapt to your changing circumstances, whether it's a change in economic circumstances, whether it's a change of pressure at work, whether it's a change of work-life balance, whatever the change is, being able to adapt will help promote health. As this definition in the Lancet in 2009 now, this definition of health is the ability to adapt. So if we can allow individuals to have a balance between resources and challenges, that will provide them with the ability to adapt to their individual situation. So last slide, then I'll dive into the Healthy Work Analytics dashboard and show you how it works. So as I mentioned, the questions under Healthy Work Analytics fall under these three well-being categories: physical, social, and psychological, based on Dodge's definition of subjective well-being. But we also wanted to make sure the questions that we're asking are connected or correlated to self-reported productivity. We want to ask the correct questions, not only to improve well-being, but to improve productivity. So Petraska et al. Did some fantastic work looking at personal well-being subjects and work well-being subjects, and looking at which subjects are where there's more of a correlation with self-reported productivity. So what we did was along looking at the literature, as looking at Dodge's work, using our own experience working within the field of ergonomics and human factors, we designed the question sets to fall under each of these categories, as you will see within the dashboard in a moment. So what I'll do, I'll just dive into the dashboard to show you what you get from the questionnaire. So as I said, the questionnaire is an online questionnaire that's sent to you, and then it's forwarded on to staff for them to complete. There's no way of identifying the actual individual, so it's not a unique link. But what you get is these results. Now, this is the summary section only, and what we're looking at here is the mean health. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. This is the mean healthy working distraction score. So under summary, so what we have here is the questions within healthy work analytics in ranking order. But at the top, we have the highest distraction. And then at the bottom in green, we have the lowest distraction. What we've done within healthy work analytics is using a traffic light system to be able to categorize the level of risk. So a severe distraction is 6 and above. So in healthy work analytics, we have a 0 to 10 score. A 0 meaning I'm not distracted, and 10 meaning I'm highly distracted. So above 6 is a severe distraction. Equal to 3 or more than 3, or less than or equal to 6 is moderate, or less than or equal to 3 is mild. So what this does is it produces what we call is the healthy working distraction score. And in this case, we've got the healthy working distraction score for this company of 75 employees at 3.7. So the healthy working distraction score is a measure of how much employees are distracted from carrying out their best work. Now, when working with clients, what we're looking to do is have a constant downward pressure on this distraction score. We want to move it downwards. The further we get it to 0, the more balance we have within our subjective well-being and the more productivity we should see. So we have a 3.7 score here. What also the healthy work analytics does, it will automatically calculate the number of individuals you need for a reliable result. In this example, we have 75 people in the sample, and we have 53 people who have completed this survey. So to get a reliable result, we need 75% to ensure a valid and reliable result. And you can look at this by departments as well. So when we're running the survey, you can prompt staff to fill in the survey to get to the number you require for a valid result. That is showing you the mean healthy working distraction score company-wide. But where you would want to focus is these classifiers. This is where healthy work analytics becomes somewhat intelligent. So what we don't want to do is to have a generic approach across all age ranges. So I'm not sure if you saw this, but I was talking about different classifiers. So we have departments as different classifiers where we could look at sales, which has a different distraction score of a 3.3 and different distractions compared to, say, UK customer services or support that has a much higher distraction score than sales. So they're going to be bespoke interventions for each of those departments. Look at work location, and we can compare home office, so the main distractors within people working from the home office, compared to the company office, the main distractors. So you can see in the company office, it's mainly interruptions from people, temperature, carrying out tasks that are not normally part of your job. And that's different from when working from home. So we need slightly bespoke, more nuanced interventions here. And we can see a company office is a higher well-being distraction score than the home office. Age range. So we can see here, when we look at age range, we have in our different categories, 20 to 29, right up to 60 to 70 plus. So we can see in the 20 to 29-year-old classifier level, we can see a healthy working distraction score of 6.1. And we have some different distractions for this group compared to, say, for example, the group 40 to 49 have a much lower distraction score. So focusing your resources on this specific age group is going to yield some positive results. I was also mentioned about the comparison and benchmarking. Healthy work analytics, it's in its infancy at the moment, but we're collecting data and growing all the time. As we collect more data, we'll be able to benchmark your results against other businesses to show you how well you're doing and where you need to improve compared to other businesses, which is interesting from a well-being and contextual inquiry perspective. I talked about the well-being categories, and I'm going to mention this again. So this is a different way of looking at the results in this spider diagram. So we can see here, I'm going to go back to department and company-wide results. So we can see here the classifier levels, well-being category distraction scores by classifier levels. These are the classifier levels within the research that our questions fall under. So we can see here, we've got some issues with not enough time, depressed, stressed, and listed here, not enough time, depressed, stress, and health and wellness are the top 3 main distractors. Now we can click on those individual well-being categories and see which specific questions relate to that category. But we can also start to overlay and compare. So for example, age range, we can look at the 20 to 29-year-old group and compare that to the overall healthy work and distraction score across the whole business. So this is just a very an easier way of visualizing the report and the results in a PowerPoint presentation, for example. I was talking about the impact assessment. So if I go to departments again, for company-wide, this chart shows the potential impact on the healthy work and distraction score here of addressing issues within each well-being category. So these are our well-being categories across the top that I've mentioned a few times now. For different subgroups, now we have many different subgroups within healthy work analytics, such as employment type, gender, work location, work setting. There are many different variables. So where do you need to put your resources? When we take into account all of the well-being categories and all of the subsets, all of the different categories listed on the left-hand side, Healthy Work Analytics automatically analyzes the data to work out where you're going to have the biggest impact across this healthy work and distraction score. So that automatically updates. So we can look at work location, for example. We could look at most common area working within the last month. We can look at age range. And here, this will automatically update depending on which group which classifier you're looking at. So the impact assessment is a really useful tool to identify where we can have the biggest impact on the healthy work and distraction score. So within Healthy Work Analytics, and I'll show you this briefly afterwards, in the questionnaire, we have open questions within each section, where it allows the staff to make comments to provide more context. Obviously, it's limited somewhat at being a questionnaire. Obviously, you'd like to be there observing each individual, but that's not realistic across a wide range of users. So providing the opportunity to simply write down what's causing you what's stopping you doing your best work, what's affecting your well-being in relation to the specific questions, allows us to provide more context to the management when they are reviewing the results. So we can see here, Healthy Work Analytics provides a word cloud to give you more indication of what the main issues are. But within detailed results, we can look at the exact comments that staff are making across each department. Now, in this example, we don't go down by the more granular classifier levels, such as age group or work location. We only report on department to ensure that employee confidentiality. So we can look at, for example, sales team. What sort of comments are they making? This provides some good context to some of the issues that are reported, some of the results that we're seeing. The Healthy Work Analytics has a really powerful statistical analysis engine in the background to do a lot of the work for you. So your teams don't have to crunch the numbers in the background. So this chart here shows if the selected question, and now here are the questions within Healthy Work Analytics on the left-hand side. So it shows if the selected question differs between the different classifier levels that we've discussed already. So we can see the different classifier levels of work location, employment type, gender, for example. So Healthy Work Analytics has already completed the analysis here automatically for us and worked out where there is a difference that hasn't happened by chance. So the distribution of responses for each classifier level are displayed. When approximate confidence intervals, these blue lines here, are shown, classifier levels whose intervals do not overlap. An example of that is the UK Customer Service Finance Department, not overlapping with support and property insurance. This can, if they do not overlap, this can be regarded as having differences that are more than just random fluctuations. So we can see here that noise, there's something going on there between these departments. Noise is causing a real issue for these departments compared to the other departments. So it requires further investigation. And then we have a ranking order of the healthy work analytics statistical analysis to establish what the main distractions are. And we're listing the confidence intervals here to ensure robust statistical analysis. Then we also have numeric response breakdown. So some different questions that we ask within healthy work analytics, such as healthy diets, exercise, the amount of time individuals are sitting for, self-reported days absence due to injury, illness, self-reported presenteeism, self-reported absenteeism, and self-reported productivity. So the tool is doing, the healthy work analytics statistical analysis is doing the same thing here. This chart shows if the selected question differs between classifier levels. So all of the different questions I just run through, is there a difference between the classifier levels that we're using throughout healthy work analytics? Now, healthy work analytics has automatically established that this hasn't happened, just it's not due to just random fluctuation. So healthy diet, again, support and property insurance, these confidence intervals are not crossing over. There's something warrants further investigation here and provides a bit more nuance and statistical analysis for the users that require that. Then we have the well-being category breakdown. So a spider diagram, looking at just comparing from a visualization perspective for those PowerPoint presentations, providing to management just or your colleagues, trying to show them the results of healthy work analytics. So for example, we can look at work location, and we can clearly see here, obviously the company office is not performing as well as combination of the two and the home office. We can look at age range, as we've discussed a few times now, and we can see here that the clear outlier is the 20 to 29-year-old group. And then we have listed here below the same results, just in a table format. So as I've already mentioned, the detailed text results obviously provide more of a context of use there. So that's the healthy work analytics dashboard. We have the summary section and the detailed results section. Depending on your level of detail that you want, you can go into real detail from the statistical analysis, utilizing all of the power of healthy work analytics, or you can just look at the basic overview against all of these different classifiers, such as the important things such as work location, department, and age range. Healthy work analytics dashboard, if you were to use healthy work analytics dashboard, you'll have your own obviously login and access to your own data that you'll be able to see and track. What we would recommend to do is completing the survey maybe twice, 3 times per year. And we would work with you to a chartered ergonomist or some equivalent qualifications would be able to work with you on the results, running through the results, to be able to provide you with some guidance on where to focus your time and resources. Obviously, the dashboard does a lot of that for you, but Cardinus can work with you at those early stages to help you identify where to focus your time and effort. Just going back to the, just wanted to show you guys the questionnaire as well, what your colleagues will see if they were to be sent a healthy work analytics questionnaire. So, and this is all bespokeable, the messaging that you can add on to this. So the first question that we ask is, where do you work? So these are the classifier levels I've been talking about. So for example, a combination of the company and office, a combination of the home and office. We can see here, gives us an option of where to choose, and we can provide some context here as well. Then we can look at the other classifiers, approximately where have you been working most of your time? And when working from home, what kind of space do you have? Do you have a dedicated workroom or office? Or do you have a non-specific home location, such as a dining room table? that takes us into the Healthy Work Analytics questionnaire. It takes on average about 8 minutes to complete, and we have, from a distraction perspective, no distraction and high distraction. So the first 2 questions are based around health, diet, and exercise. Then we move on to the well-being questions. And our questionnaire is inherently a productivity, a well-being and productivity questionnaire. And we ask, as I said, we're not looking at how engaged you are, because you could be fully engaged, but you could be distracted by your personal finances or the pay and benefits you receive, for example. And the question we ask throughout Healthy Work Analytics is, during the last 6 months, to what extent did each comment below distract you from carrying out your best work? And it's a consistent approach from a usability perspective throughout the questionnaire. So we ask about illness or injury, discomfort or pain, lack of sleep, and throughout we can provide context to the questionnaire for the management, as I showed you. I won't go through all of this, so you get a gist of what it looks like. So the main idea is not at all or very much so from a distraction perspective. So that's some healthy working analytics. We wanted to provide management with more robust data around questions that are based around subjective well-being, but are also correlated with self-reported productivity. And we wanted to provide a system, a dashboard, to allow managers to go in and look in more detail at the results, to provide more of a nuanced, focused intervention. And Healthy Work Analytics hopefully is doing that. The last thing I would say is that it produces an automated report for you, which you can obviously easily bespoke the introduction, and you can take images from that to put into a PowerPoint presentation, for example. So that's easily doable with Healthy Working Analytics. So I hope you found that interesting. Sorry about the slight glitch on the sharing of the screen. And if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer any questions you have.
Hey, Stephen, I find it absolutely fascinating, especially with the idea that, a lot of companies are looking at how can we improve the well-being of our employees. And there's some low-hanging fruit in here, right? There's excessive emails. We actually demoed it to an organization that has 5 hospitals, and they discussed the idea that one of the hospitals, the Wi-Fi is horrible, and the employees just feel like if you just make that change, it'll improve their day. So can you talk a bit about the return on investment from some things that are very low cost, but would have high impact on the employees?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the main areas from a well-being perspective in the literature is just feedback, good quality feedback in a timely manner. That comes up time and time again. And that's a relatively easy thing to fix. Or from Healthy Work Analytics, as you will see here from an example company-wide, excessive email being a bigger distraction than, for example, the monitor or the chair, for example, which you would have maybe hazard a guess would have been a bigger distraction during COVID, people working from home. But actually, it's some of these basic things such as lack of sleep, excessive email, interruptions from people. So low-hanging fruit, as you said, Bill, some relatively easy interventions. Now, within the report, Healthy Work Analytics will provide some guidance and standardized recommendations for you to go away with. But obviously, within each business, they can manage these things differently. But we do work to support you and how to reduce the distraction in relation to these questions. But yes, absolutely, it's the low-hanging fruit is the really important thing, the easy, quick wins, such as feedback, excessive email, some of the things that we've already been working with clients on to reduce the distraction. So there's not always highly complex interventions to reduce this distraction score. They can be quite simple things. And regarding cost-benefit analysis, as I mentioned, we can work with you to measure the cost-benefit analysis. And how we do that is we measure the cost per person per hour when you first do your first survey. and then we look to implement the interventions that Healthy Work Analytics identifies. Then we look to remeasure your cost per person per hour, say 6 months later, and we hope to see a reduction in that. And that's how we can measure the change in actual productivity from a financial perspective. So what we would hope to see within your organization, as the company-wide healthy work and distraction score goes down, we would hope to see the cost per person per hour going down as well. So that's how we measure the actual productivity. Self-reported productivity, inherently the questions are productivity questions, but we also ask individuals how productive do they feel when working for this business. That's another indicator from a productivity perspective that Healthy Work Analytics can provide.
Hey, Stephen, we have a question. In remote working environment, how would you reduce excessive emails? Do you have an example of how that worked? And,
there are lots of,
were you able to measure it?
Yeah, so you can measure if your impact on email has changed. If you put an intervention into place, and there are lots of good guidance. Microsoft provide some fantastic guidance and training on how to manage excessive email. And it's not always obvious how to do that. So Microsoft, off the shelf, and on YouTube, there are loads and loads of guidance around managing excessive email. And it's also managing, as long as the management understand for that, if it's that specific department having an issue, it's allowing them to understand that excessive email is a high distractor, and providing them the simple tools to share with their colleagues how to reduce excessive email. So not constantly copying in and BCCing in people where it's not required. Then we can measure that by, when we remeasure Healthy Work Analytics, we would hope to see, in this example, excessive email going down. So we can actually measure if an intervention that we've put into place has had an impact on an individual's subjective or the group's subjective well-being. But there's lots of great resources available for excessive email when working from
How do we handle excessive Amazon drivers? No, I'm just kidding. Someone was at my door earlier, so I had to pop away. Stephen, there's a couple more questions. One is, just quickly, can the reports be exported to Excel?
Absolutely, they can be exported into Word or Excel, and we're working hopefully long-term exporting into PowerPoint as well. But yes, they can be exported. The data initially goes into Excel, so yes, that's absolutely possible. And our dashboard, which is done in Shiny R, which is a statistical analysis package, takes the information from Excel. So yes, that's possible.
Stephen, there's a lot of surveys that are out there, and Andy mentioned it in his brief that I read, but there's a lot of surveys that are out there. There's a lot of different programs that are out there. How does Healthy Working Analytics differentiate from similar solutions?
Very good question. I would say the main thing is a lot of the surveys focus on engagement, and a lot of surveys they talk about well-being, but never really define what well-being is. And the questions are not always they don't always fall under the key categories of well-being. So we've looked at that in detail, and our questions fall under the physical, social, and psychological elements of well-being. And ours is looking at what's stopping you doing your best work. If you're working, for example, in an open plan office, and you can't concentrate due to what we call speech intelligibility, overhearing other people's conversations, which we saw in the results. We saw that in work location, in the company office, interruptions from people, being distracted and noise. That's clearly identified as stopping people doing their best work. And in that example, if that's sustained, that's going to start to impact an individual's subjective well-being, which can then lead to high levels of presenteeism and potentially that individual looking to move to another organization. So that's the main difference between Healthy Work Analytics and other engagement surveys. We're really looking at the key drivers of well-being and productivity. We're not really looking at engagement, which isn't the direct route to improve productivity. If you're looking to improve productivity, it's focusing on well-being, not even health for that matter. You can, as I mentioned at the start, you could improve individuals' health But if they're being distracted by some relatively easy things to fix, such as noise, lack of sleep, temperature, interruptions from people, in this example on screen, that's going to stop them doing their best work and potentially lead to high levels of absenteeism and potentially looking to move to another organization.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for that answer. I really like the fact, Stephen, that you slow down in the beginning to define well-being and health. I think that's extremely important. Another question that we had is, how do you maintain anonymity for smaller departments or organizations? Because, you know, you could probably figure out who, if I did this in the US for Cardinus, we have 3 employees.
Yes.
If one of us did this, you would probably be able to pinpoint what I was complaining about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as
Complain is the wrong word.
As you can see here by department, the minimum size we report on is 5. So if you have a department with, say, 3 people, we would merge that with another department or whatever classifier level we've agreed to work with you on. So, and this can be increased up. Generally 5 is the minimum, but you can take it up if you want. So that's one way of not keeping the individual's data anonymous. And also, we don't have an individual link per survey, and we don't send out surveys to each individual email. We have one generic link that's not traceable to any individual. So those 2 methods allow us to keep the confidentiality of individuals. And within the text analysis, we only report on department. We don't go further than that, such as age range, because then we can start to see individuals and what comments they've made. So we've purposely done that to ensure the results are anonymous. We'd also work with the clients at the early stages, introducing healthy work analytics. So we could provide guidance and support, PowerPoint presentations, email communications that could be sent out to your staff, explaining how healthy work analytics looks after we'll make sure that your results are confidential and they can't be pinpointed directly back to the individual. So they're the 2 main methods that we use to ensure results are confidential.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. We have one last question, and obviously this is tailored towards office workers. I know in our world, as we look to expand it, eventually it will be brought out to the non-office field, but for right now it is strictly focused on office workers. But there is the opportunity in the future to take this out to non-office, construction, factory. Certainly we can use this in home environment, but Stephen, what are the plans to take this outside of office? Are we 6 months away? Are we a year away?
I wouldn't say even that long. It's just the main questions are generic across an individual's subjective well-being. There are a few questions in this version of healthy work analytics that covers office ergonomics. Because we know that musculoskeletal discomfort in office ergonomics is a big distraction. So there will be some slight tweaks to the questionnaire, and also at the start of the questionnaire, working with the client to ensure that we have the correct classifiers, such as if you're working in a construction site, for example, these first questions are not going to be relevant, such as company office, home office, or combination. So some slight tweaking of these, but the rest of the well-being questions are generic. We looked at, as I mentioned, we looked at the literature in detail, and the literature wasn't focused on office workers. That was looking at a broad range of employees. What are the main elements of subjective well-being that are correlated with self-reported productivity? They weren't specifically office workers. This version of healthy work analytics the questionnaire here is tailored to office users, but it can be very easily tailored to non-office workers to provide you with similar results in the healthy work analytics dashboard.
Stephen, I know I said that was the last question, but there's one that I think is really important. How long does it take the participant or the user to go through the current question set? I think it's 30 questions. So on average, how long does it take them to complete the survey?
Currently at the moment, it's around 8 minutes on average, but you can stop and save at any point and then return back to the survey. So around 8 minutes to complete
Great.
the survey. And we're not doing pulse surveys. We're looking to do healthy work analytics twice, 3 times per year. Whereas pulse surveys can be somewhat causing a distraction from doing your best work when you're constantly asked to complete surveys. So once, twice, 3 times maximum per year, and then we work with you to really bring that healthy work and distraction score down by focusing on the areas that are stopping your colleagues and your employees doing their best work. So it'll be focused interventions to try to get that distraction score downwards.
Stephen, as we wrap up, can you talk a little bit about piloting? Like, how many employees would it take for a pilot to be validated or the information to be of value to a company? And for those that are on the call, know that, that is absolutely one of the things that we do at Ergonomist is we allow our clients to, in essence, kick the tires, utilize it to make sure that there's value in the program. So Stephen, if anyone on this call wants to pilot the program, can you talk a little bit about the size of the group and maybe the duration?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So in this example here, there was only 75 employees. Ideally, above 50 would be useful, just to ensure a good sample. But the healthy work analytics will automatically establish if you have enough people who've completed the survey for valid results. So, for example, if you have 14 people in the sample and only 5 people have completed, we need to get to 95% to ensure a reliable result. I would suggest around 50 as a minimum would be good. But obviously, the bigger the number, the better. The bigger the number, the less people you need to complete the survey to ensure reliable results. So, and it can be run in individual departments as a test run. It can be run across the business in its entirety in a test run. Whatever you feel that you need to be able to see how this can work for your business, we can support you with and get it set up bespoke for you as an individual.
And what about duration? Is it a week? Is it 3 months? How long would that pilot need to run to provide not just the results that we're seeing here, but show a return on investment?
Okay, so if we wanted to do the survey twice, we generally need to give 4 to 6 months between surveys to allow time to implement the interventions. That's why pulse surveys changing day by day, week by week, things change. It's very hard for management to keep up and make those interventions. So what we're looking to do is to highlight the top 5 main distractions for the company to work on, bespoke by department, age group, work location, wherever you want to focus your resources. Implement those interventions, and then 4 to 6 months later, when you feel that those interventions have been put into place and are up and running, we would look to remeasure and then look at the changes and look to how you've hopefully improved your distraction score for example, from a 3.3 down to a 2. Hopefully we would see something like that. But I'd say 4 to 6 months to do before and after. But just to do one survey, it can be relatively quick. It's all based on how we get the staff engaged. We need to market the product to them, explain to them that it's coming, it's available, and to look out for it and the benefits of using healthy work analytics. And then depending on the size of the organization, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks for everyone to complete the survey. And then for Ergonomist to provide the initial reports and provide access to the dashboard.
Perfect. Stephen, I really appreciate you being so thorough, taking time to demonstrate healthy work in analytics. I really want to thank everyone for participating, for giving us some of your time today. And I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful rest of the day. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephen.